Setting up now. And we are live. All right.
All right, great.
Handing it over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight to this Parks Committee meeting. And well, let me just turn it straight over to the Parks Department.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Hahn. I'm calling from Parks Concessions. My colleague, Kat Kanyata, who's handling the golf course, the upcoming golf course solicitation for Diker Beach, forwarded the invite over to me. And so it's my understanding that the community board wanted to discuss your thoughts or any feedback to the notice that we had sent a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I guess if you could just walk us through the basics of what's happening.
So what's happening is, we issued a notice regarding a forthcoming RFP for the golf course. The current agreement that we have is expiring in early 2024. And in accordance with the city's concession rules, Parks is required to issue a new RFP to award a new concession term after the current term expires. And so the notice you received is to, encourage you to reach out to us if you had any, any feedback, any ideas, any thoughts that you had for us to take into consideration as we draft a new RFP document. Once a new RFP has been drafted, we would obviously send a copy to the community board and the borough president and meet with potential proposers, those who are interested in operating the golf course. And then we would review any proposals that were submitted after the responses to the RFP were due. The next step is for us to evaluate the responses, make a selection, and then prior to moving forward with an agreement to, again, reach out to the community board and give you an opportunity to review a potential agreement. There would be a formal public hearing in addition to that, where the community board and any member of the public can feel free to provide, make any testimony that you feel is appropriate. And then after the hearing, barring any changes that may need to be made, Parks would then move forward with our award process, which involves, essentially signing a concession agreement, getting the city's law department to approve the agreement, and then sending the agreement on to the city's controller's office for contract registration. And only after the contract is registered by the controller would it be considered to be valid and in effect. So this is really, for us, I know we're talking about golf, so this is par for the course. This is how we award concessions.
I know that we had heard from at least one member of the public about
Wow. Oh.
Leighton, do you have anything to add? Or okay, thank you.
there was some concern about perimeter maintenance being part of the contract, because I guess whoever the company that currently operates the golf course has not been good about clearing litter dumping, and also just sort of taking care of the plants there, just kind of lawn maintenance.
Understood. So as part of the RFP, I think that's something that if that is an issue at this particular location, we would, highlight that as an obligation. And this is about the future, not the current operator, though. Obviously we should continue to talk about and have dialogue about the current operator. RFP means request for proposals. It is a solicitation. It is a competitive process, just like all government contracts. You have to compete for the contract, and the the mechanism that we use to award that concession through the competitive process is called a request for proposal process.
So the current concession, people who run a concession, their term is up.
Their current agreement with the Parks Department is expiring in early 2024.
In 2024. Okay.
Correct.
So do we know if they intend to rebid?
I work for the Parks Department, not the current operator. So, there's nobody's precluded from proposing on our RFPs.
Yeah.
Our goal is to get as many proposals as possible. So, I think, transparency, we would encourage the current operator to propose. We would encourage any, golf operator to propose on this opportunity, because the goal here is to get as many, proposals in so that we have options to choose from as part of this process. So there's no automatic renewal, as there may be in like a traditional lease. When your contract with the Parks Department is up for a concession, you have to compete and for the next term, just like everyone else. And so there's no competitive advantage that you have by being the incumbent.
Is it highest bidder?
No, it's not a bid process. That process is called a request for bids, where we only consider the fee offered to the city. In a request for proposals process, we take into consideration several criteria, including the fee offered to the city, because fees are important. Collecting revenue is important for the city, of course. But we also take into consideration things like operating experience, their planned operations, their capital plans, their financial capability, any environmental considerations that they would, employ as part of any renovation or operation or maintenance work that they would do throughout the term.
Okay. I think that perimeter maintenance absolutely needs to be part of the new, whoever, if they keep it or if there's a new concessions that come in. I think somehow we need to figure out a way that has to be put in. As someone who frequents both the inside of the course and the perimeter is an absolute disaster. I mean, you name it, it's dumped there. So like, it's laughable. It's insane. Like what is on the outside of that perimeter. Everything from broken TVs to toilets to just old bags of cement or just debris. There's no way that has to be included into the next one.
So what I had mentioned in terms of planned operations, to expand on that includes what they plan to do in terms of operating the golf course. That includes their hours, their pricing, their maintenance plan, their staffing plans, their rubbish removal plans. Those are all taken into consideration as part of the planned operations category when we evaluate proposals.
Yeah, great. I guess my point is that does the perimeter, do they consider the perimeter part of their maintenance?
I think we have to take a look at a map. There is a licensed premises map that's included with all of our agreements. And so if there are specific areas that you're asking about, that's something that I'll have to take a look at, and I'll get back to you. I don't want to give you the wrong answer and say yes, they're responsible for everything outside of it, because they may be and they may not be.
Okay.
I will say that dumping around the perimeter of golf courses is not particularly unique to Diker. It actually happens at many of our golf courses. And I think one of the things that our operators try to do is to stay on top of it. But it's almost like it's like when you're speeding on a highway. You can catch somebody one time, but chances are they'll continue to do it. And so it's going to be an ongoing thing.
Oh,
The operator is also, just sort of keeping in mind, the operator is also trying to run a golf course, and that's what their expertise is. And as part of that privilege to operate a business on city parkland, maintenance around the perimeter in certain locations is an obligation of the agreement.
fair enough.
What does the concession cover? I mean, they're running a golf course. Does it cover the kitchens? You know, what does it cover?
It covers everything on the course and, including all structures, all buildings, all landscaping features. These are all things that are completely the concessionaire's responsibility,
Including the kitchen?
including the kitchen, yes.
Okay.
So watering the grass, the irrigation systems, all the building systems, all the buildings and the structures and everything inside those buildings are the concessionaire's responsibility to maintain.
And the golf carts and all of that.
The golf carts are not city property. Like the golf course is a city-owned property. The golf carts are not city property. That is something that every concessionaire that operates a golf course has to bring with them as part of their personal equipment.
Interesting.
But they are obligated to maintain the golf carts as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dan?
Feels weird to raise my hand as the host, but yeah, I would second the idea of some kind of just inspection daily, if possible, something for the perimeter. Even though would it be technically, I guess, city property, the sidewalks surrounding the course specifically. Something in terms of just checking on it, or just favoring maybe some bidders that have that listed out as part of their beautification, is just, even if it's forwarded to city agencies for actual being dealt with, someone having an eye on that in addition to the community, which often will, bring that to CB10's attention and bring that to the attention of the various city agencies if the operator could also have an eye on that. So they felt that they were partners in that. And as well, I know that this is probably common for probably other courses, but we've had a lot of complaints about rats in the neighborhood the last couple of years, or many years, and just making and seeing what their pest control and extermination policies might be for that. Would also be, I think, really favored by the community, especially knowing that there's a vendor that would take that very seriously. Understood.
And yes, pest control plans is also something that, the maintenance schedules, that's all part of maintenance. So yes, that would also be their obligation, and we can certainly highlight, these issues along with any others that the community board had mentioned on the call today, but maybe some folks who aren't on the call, if you can follow up with me or follow up with Kat directly with just a list of the priority items for the community board, I think it would be helpful for us to have that in writing, because I don't want to leave anything out as we start to develop this RFP.
Leodon?
Yeah, I think this is exactly what I was going to ask. I was going to ask in terms of like how we drafted any kind of, what's the scope essentially of services, or, the scope of the RFP that we're kind of looking people to bid. I think that would be more helpful. And if I understand this correctly, this is kind of a initial kind of meeting discussing that. And so who, do we get to recommend some of these items to make it into the RFP, or who's responsible for compiling or writing this down?
Recommends what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
Just in general, like I was kind of looking to see if there was an RFP or like a standard RFP that we have used before, or the city's used before, or maybe the prior one in which the team was selected to maintain and so forth the golf course.
We can send you the prior RFP, but I can tell you that a lot has changed in 20 years. So I'm not sure how helpful it would be for you, because if anything, our RFPs are probably less attractive in terms of what the way they were written before.
Got it.
They're full of restrictions, they're full of requirements, and they're much longer documents than they were in the past. And so if anything, we probably tried to clamp down over the years, specifically what it is that we're looking for. But in terms of scope, we're looking for an operator to run a golf course and maintain the property.
Got it.
And any food service plans that they have should be included with that. But that's, essentially what we're looking for. This is not an RFB. This is not a bid document. So we're not spelling out the scope. we're saying here's a request for proposals, an RFP. Here's the opportunity. We're offering a 20-year term. These are the requirements, over the course of the term in terms of reporting to the Parks Department, getting Parks' permission for all plans, all changes in schedules, all pricing changes, and then letting the business community submit proposals to us on how they would intend to approach this concession should they be awarded the golf course for the next term.
Okay. Well, personally, I've never run a golf course, so that's why I was a little bit kind of questioning, like what is entailed in running and operating a golf course, and how can we help essentially like embellish the RFP to make sure that perhaps like you guys are talking about like pest control, right? Something that, as you guys were mentioning that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, to make sure that the perimeter, and not just the golf course, but the perimeter, the sidewalks, safety, all of that is kind of considered.
Right. We don't, we're not expert. The Parks Department, we're certainly not experts in running golf courses. That's why we have these companies that run it for us. In terms of the day-to-day operations, that is something that the concessionaire is responsible for conducting on their own. And we don't necessarily prescribe a specific method, for example, in pest control, because there may be something new and novel or some industry standard in the industry, in the golf business that we're not aware of. And so what we try to do in our RFPs is to say, we want proposals that address these topics, and then let the actual businesses, the interested parties, propose how they would approach these things. And so some folks may have, a baiting system. Some folks may have, some other spray system. Some folks may say, it makes sense to do it once a week. Other folks may say it makes sense to do once a month. Some folks may want to use dry ice. I don't know if that's even allowed anymore, but those are all things that we're counting on the experts in the industry to come back to us with their proposal on how they would operate this course and how they would maintain the course.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Terry?
Hi. So you mentioned it's a 20-year term. That was part of my question. What is in place in case they get the bid, they go forward, and they are royally screwing up?
Well, all concession agreements are terminable at any time for any reason at the sole discretion of the Parks Commissioner. Now, if anybody in this meeting is a business owner, I think you understand how scary that is. That is a huge risk that they take, and we do not reimburse anybody for anything, any unamortized investments in the event that their license is terminated. So in terms of what is the repercussions, that is the ultimate repercussion. However, if we were to do that, that means all those responsibilities would fall to the Parks Department, right, and our resources. So we try our best to work with our operators. If there's something that we believe they should be doing better that they're not, then we give them an opportunity to cure that issue. The termination, though it is a tool that we have, we also have other tools like assessing liquidated damages in the event that we find over the course of our inspection that they're not living up to their end of the agreement and the commitments that they made to the city.
Thanks.
When you're looking at potential operators who are submitting RFPs, do you take into consideration where they're based? Like that there would be a priority maybe for a New York company above an international company?
What if it's a bad New York company and the international company is a better operator?
Well, sure, but
we're trying to deliver the best product to the community and to the park, and so we do not take into consideration where the company is geographically based. We take into consideration the criteria that I had mentioned before, and so what the conversation I've had, and I've been with parks for 16 years, is what is local to you? Because that may be very different to me. Is it where I live, or is it where my company is based? Or is it where my employees live, or where my GM lives? And if I live across the street from that border that you draw, am I also all of a sudden not a local? So that becomes a murky topic. And so we don't really, get into that when we're evaluating a proposal. We're looking for the best potential operator to run this golf course, regardless of who they are or where they're from. I mean, certainly there is a vetting process, right? In addition to submitting a proposal, Parks does background checks. And so we find that, somebody submits a really nice offer, but, over the course of a background check, we find out that, the other operations, the other businesses, the other golf courses they've run in other cities or other places for other municipalities, they've done a pretty poor job. We have an opportunity to address that before we decide that, yes, they gave us a pie in the sky offer that is totally unrealistic. There is an opportunity for us through the vetting process, to resolve that in some way. Now, I can't get into what that solution might be because each issue can be different. And there may be an opportunity for things to get fixed and to be addressed in a satisfactory way.
Dan?
Yeah, I thought of another thing that maybe to put to the forefront for an operator also. I know that the probably much like many other golf courses across the city, but Diker Beach used to be a wetland that was essential to the area. It is, of course, right near the Narrows. We had Sandy. It may be, I think, prone to flooding. It would be interesting also just in terms of what kind of climate resiliency they might consider as part of the park facility itself, as well as, of course, Staten Island back in the 90s with mosquito spraying and things like that, and what they might think in terms of controlling West Nile on the site. It was a wetland at one time without having a major environmental impact. It's the kind of really smack in the center of the Gravesend green belt that kind of runs along the shore here. Migratory bird routes. It's probably one of the largest open green spaces for migrating birds. So things like that, and especially if there's ways of opening up the course more to the public. That's just a personal thing for me, for people to be able to access while maintaining safety for the people that are golfing there, obviously, and things like that. But use it as possibly a multifunctional space. That would be incredible. I know that's very hard to do in a situation like a golf course where there's danger of flying golf balls and everything. But that kind of treatment of the site as kind of a historic wetland that's been reclaimed, and its importance as like a central part of the Community Board 10 especially, that kind of thing would also be really nice to see in a new operator.
I think to sort of answer your first question, we're actually in this RFP, we're actually going and planning to address the sustainable design. One of the new categories that we're working on, and the RFP is still being drafted, and it still requires review and approval by several city lawyers. But one of the criteria that we've proposed to include in the RFP is a comprehensive sustainable design. And our RFPs in the past spoke to things like we encourage the concessionaire to do these things, and we provide favorable consideration, so you may get extra points on your proposal by addressing these things. But this approach we're taking is actually to assign an entire category where if this is not addressed, then points are being left on the table by not including this aspect in their proposal. So we're doing our best. And then to your second point, in terms of public access, I think we really want to understand what it is the community is looking for, because it's a very vague kind of thing. And I think, generally the concept of like people, having a picnic, on the green while somebody's playing golf is very dangerous, and, probably something that an operator will not be able to get an insurance company to cover the city for. And so I think we'd love to explore this option with you. We just want to know what exactly that access looks like for you.
Yeah.
Is it annual programming that is maybe not specifically related to golf? Can it be in the parking lot? Can it be in the clubhouse? Can it be, in some other event space that's safe? And for, everybody can continue to use the golf course as they had been as a golf course, but also to have programming for the community. We just want to flesh that out. I think community use can be a lot of things. And one thing that we always have to keep in mind is that because it is parkland, all the activities that take place on our properties at our concessions have to be parks appropriate uses. So, we can't have a supermarket on parkland. We can't have a nail salon on parkland, right? You can't have a school on parkland either, because that is not the intended use of parkland. But there can be educational components in the programming that they do that are also parks appropriate. Maybe there's some environmental, related education program that they can run. Maybe there's an opportunity for them to partner with a local conservancy group or work with the parks department's urban park rangers, who host a number of different activities in our other parks as well. So we just want to understand what it is that ideally you would look for, so that we're being specific when we're communicating this desire to the business community.
I could two that just are for me personally, again, would be perhaps in terms of access, just any areas that aren't explicitly part of the course, perhaps, or are far enough away, depending on insurance, obviously, but even like some walking paths or something like that around the periphery that would integrate a little bit into also maybe the existing park space. Mm-hmm. But also I'm thinking in terms of programming, which I hadn't thought of, which is amazing, but even the opportunity on weekends or at nighttime, especially for, movie nights or things like that, would be absolutely amazing. Open green space that's maintained and manicured at night when no one really would be using the space. I know that's looking for space for things like that is always really hard for the community. And also the private event dining area, it has like a concession space at the very front. If maybe that could be opened up for community events on some recurring basis, because I know a lot of community groups, community board included, are often hard up for accessible space to meet, things like that. There's been calls for a kind of community space in the neighborhood of a certain size for a while now. So if they could even just, partner with groups that might need a large space for meetings, that would be incredibly welcome in the neighborhood, especially because it would have parking built in. There are very few of those in the neighborhood that have accessible parking areas for people to come to meet. So
I think movie nights are a really, really awesome idea. And I know that, over the course of the pandemic, when people were trying to, be outside more, that was something that we tried to do in a few places. One location, we had a drive-in outdoor movie screening. We partnered with the Tribeca Film Festival, and there was a film series at Orchard Beach in the parking lot. So folks had to, stay in their cars and tune their radios to a certain station to get the volume. And there was a movie that was shown over the summer. So an idea like that, I think, is really creative, and certainly that's something that in certain locations on a golf course, I think that could make sense. And why not? Because they can operate the food concession as well, in case somebody wanted a bite to eat or get a soda or some water, popcorn while they watch the movie. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that point, I think that the golf course is something like the 4th or 5th largest green space in Brooklyn. And I think, there's a sizable number of people in the community that don't play golf. And so they don't have any access to that space whatsoever. And the current operator, doesn't make those kinds of efforts to welcome the community in. And so to have a new operator in place doing something like that, I think would be very exciting and beneficial to the neighborhoods.
Understood. And I think this is a great opportunity to sort of revisit that. As a reminder, when this current concession when the current agreement was solicited, it was 20 years ago. And so it was done at a different time under different circumstances and perhaps with different desires in mind. But I think, now that we have an opportunity to revisit that and we're having this dialogue, we can certainly include things that would include, that would make the community feel more included on these activities. I don't play golf either, so I hear you.
Dan, we have a member of the public raising their hand.
Absolutely. Michael, I am going to give you allowance to talk in just 1 second. All right. You should have ability to talk. If you just want to unmute yourself, you should be able to add in.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I'm a member of Shoreview Golf Club. I'm the president of the Shoreview Golf Club. I represent 150 members. Shoreview Golf Club has been in existence since 1930, and we play exclusively at Dyker Beach. We're in our 92nd season, and we're covered by a city charter. We get the tee. This is just a background. I don't have a question, and this is great hearing all this information. And I just wanted to introduce myself. We get the tee every Sunday, a half hour after daylight for 2 hours, and we've been around a long time. There's some great history with the course and the membership. We've had a great relationship with American Golf. Things have changed over the last, I'd say, 5 years or so. And we'd love to be a part of the process of going forward. Like you were saying, this is more about the future of the golf course and how the space is allocated. And we're a great source of information. Like I said, we go back to 1930, and we'd like to be a part going forward in any way possible. And thank you. And you guys are doing a great job. And this is really very informative, just hearing all the insight that everybody has. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to hear from you.
Thanks, Mike. Richard?
Thanks, Henry. I don't know if there's a way to include this at all in any of this process, but is there a way to have more of a dialogue maybe between us and the operator or something as like the years go on? Like a 20-year term on a contract seems very long, to abide by the same sorts of terms without any changes to it. That's just kind of what's sticking in my head right now. Maybe there exists a way for us to check in at like a 5-year mark or a 3-year mark or something like that to kind of steer it in a way that, maybe we need it to in light of certain circumstances or something that has popped up. Just a thought.
I think we just want to understand what it is that, that you folks would like to revisit. Obviously, we don't have to wait for 5 years. You can always reach out to the Parks Department if there's something that you'd like to see. We're always going to make ourselves available to you, just like we did at this meeting. And if there's an issue that pops up, if there are changes that you think that need to be made, certainly that's something that you should not wait to tell us about. We'd love to hear from you and to engage with you. And in terms of having dialogue with the golf course, we can certainly make that connection. I don't think anybody from the golf course is attending this meeting, but if there's a desire to have a dialogue in some forum, we can certainly facilitate that conversation. Any and all changes that are made are subject to the Parks Department and the Parks Commissioner's approval. So ultimately, they do need to send these things to us, and we do need to approve it before any changes take place. The agreements are not written in stone. There are certain things that cannot be changed, and in fact, there are many of them. But there are also things that can be changed, subject to Parks' approval over the course of the term. I will say that maintaining a golf course is a huge undertaking. It is a significant expense, and it is a significant expense to recoup. So that's why we don't do golf courses for 5 years. There's no way to make your money back because all your investment goes up front in your early years, and you're hoping that over, throughout the remainder of the term, you're able to recoup. Hopefully, you're able to recoup some of that investment and make some money. But that's why the golf course agreements are typically 20-year terms.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Barbara?
Hi, thank you. I'm new to the group and I'm new to the board, so forgive me if I'm ignorant. Several years ago, my grandson was interested in golf lessons, and there were no programs locally. I had to take him to Chelsea Piers or to Marine Park. Will there be something at this course now for kids?
There is nothing that precludes our operators at any of our golf courses from running a junior golf program. In fact, many of them do. If that's something that you'd like to see here and it's not happening enough, or maybe they're just not marketing or doing enough outreach to let you know about what programs are available, we can highlight that in our RFP. That is something that, should you, as a group, or want to see as local residents, our interest is to grow the game, and that starts with the kids, right, and the youth. And so if you want to have future golfers playing at your golf course, you got to teach them when they're younger. Otherwise, other sports are more attractive, and they take much less time out of your day to do them.
Right.
And so I totally agree with you. That's something that outreach should be happening. And if it's not happening, we can try to address that in the RFP and encourage proposers to incorporate that as part of their proposal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Do we have anybody else?
Figure out how to take it down.
All right. Well, I guess there's nothing to vote on here, so we don't have to do that. So thank you, Alexander, for being here and talking to us. You had asked before to sort of make up a list of community priorities and send that to you. So I will make sure I will either do that or our district office will do that. And so, yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for coming, and have a good night.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
night.
If anyone has any additional stuff, feel free to email community board, and we'll get that in the next general meeting.